Minister, Chapter 18 of the House and Commons Procedure and Practice lays out the rules about the financial cycle and the main estimates. And it says that members have the right to have its grievances addressed before approving the requirements of the Crown. So as you're probably aware, one of the grievances that I have deals with immigration, refugee citizenship, Canada, operations and leadership, relating to your Associate Deputy Minister on the production of papers motion that we have that's before IRCC. And as you're likely aware, there's some issues with redactions and documents that were finally sent over just yesterday, but there were still 2 documents that have redactions that we have not been able to see. And so when Madam Xavier was here at the committee last week, she was somewhat dismissive about the absolute constitutional authority of the House of Commons to send for documents. Indeed, she actually said that the IRCC was able, through client solicitor privilege, to redact documents, which I don't believe is true. And so I guess my question for you is that, bearing in mind that you're also a member of Parliament, of the House of Commons, and not just a minister, do you agree with your deputy that IRCC has the authority to override the House of Commons constitutional authority and withhold information from this committee?
Look, before I address your question, I want to address Madam Chair's comments before. Let me just say I don't view any of the questions that I've been asked to be disrespectful, and I think if people bring passion and energy to their questions based on things they really care about, that's appropriate, and I don't mind difficult questions. It's my job to be here and take them. With respect to Mr. Redekop's question about the issues around document production and procedure, I think it's for this committee to make decisions about the needs of this committee to do its work. I have been through a similar issue on separate committees before I was a minister, and there is a natural tension that sometimes requires committees to sort things out over time between the laws that bind civil servants and the parliamentary procedures that parliamentarians agree to. I've spoken with quite a number of people over the last number of years that have differing points of view on this particular question, and I think reasonable people can disagree.
So I guess the issue is the redactions are to be looked at by the law clerk, and so you're essentially saying, or your department, Madam Chair, is saying that we can't. You don't trust the law clerk to do the job, and that the official that the department is going to do the redactions, and that's what I'm asking you. Do you agree with your department on that is the right way to go?
I don't think it's for me as the minister to proclaim on a dispute on procedure that's before this committee. I think it's for members of this committee.
Another question then. So the production of papers motion asked for documents, and it specifically asked for all briefing notes, memos, and emails from senior officials. And there were I've gone through all the batches that were distributed, and there was one little document that had a few emails in it, but the rest of it there were no other emails. There were other documents and things, and you have 9,000 people in your department with hundreds of managers. And can you honestly tell me that beside the very few that went to the deputy minister, these few emails, that 0 emails have been exchanged between managers on the subject of racism in the department? There were lots of fancy presentations made. With COVID, everybody's working remotely. I find it difficult to believe that there were no emails that should have been released in this production of papers.
Look, I think you'll appreciate with a department as large as the one that I'm responsible for, I don't have a line of sight into the specific email exchanges between people who work in the department. I think what's important is I do have full faith in the officials' ability to review and comply with the instructions that would be included in document production requests. But I think what's important is to understand the process that was employed. So I can't speak from a place of personal knowledge about those individual emails that you're referring to.
Do you think it's reasonable to assume that there probably were some emails?
I think it's important that I don't make assumptions. I wasn't copied on those emails. I don't know what they would have been, and I do have faith my officials would not be trying to not share them for any.
I want to change gears a little bit to the visitors and international students. There was a motion M44 yesterday talking about the international people that are coming in here, and there's people that are having horror stories, and I specifically want to talk about the caretaker program. Madam Xavier told me that this is a priority for your department, yet it doesn't seem to be that way. And so my question is, if it is a priority, the numbers in your report show that it is not being successful. How do you account for that?
Sorry, can you just provide clarity? You started with international students and then referred to caretakers, and there's a number, if you were referring to caregivers, there's about 6 different programs that have existed in the last couple of years. Can you just...
Yeah, I was referring to the $267 million for visitors, international students, and temporary workers, and I wanted to focus on caregivers in that category.
Time is up.
Minister, in your letter that opens the 22-23 departmental plan, you write about permanent residents, and you talk about the targets of between 360 and 445,000 new residents. But then when you look on page 22, we can see the results from the prior years, and they're always below. And in the last year, you said that you've achieved that 401,000, I think you said. So the backlog that I've seen sits at 2.1 million people, and that I think includes new citizens. You've put some extra money in for that, but my question for you is, 400,000 a year, the backlog's 2 million plus. That's 5 years of processing, assuming no new people come. How do you explain that?
Okay, there's quite a few things going on that I think requires to highlight, and I saw Dan, you may want to jump in as well. The numbers you're talking about, I assume, include all different lines of business, not permanent residency. One of the other things that is really important is that includes people who applied yesterday. It's normal for us to have hundreds of thousands of cases in any given year come into our system. In fact, we plan on resettling 405,000, or we resettled 405,000 last year, 432,000 this year. If I look at international students, we might have 500,000 applications come in a given year, and that's actually a healthy sign that demonstrates people want to come to Canada. Where we run into challenges is when the number of people who are applying each year is greater than the processing capacity of the department. With the investments that we made, I'm actually quite confident the vast majority of our lines of business will be back to about the service standard by the end of the year. If you want more specific details, I'm sure Mr. Mills would be happy to provide them, but if you'd like to move on with your questions, we'd be happy to follow up if you want to submit something in writing.
Let's move on to Ukrainian backlogs. You came and touted the program bringing Ukrainians fleeing the war zone, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and I don't know if you have the information, great, and if not, you can provide it to the committee in days. How many Ukrainians have applied under this program?
A little bit more than 200,000. I haven't seen the update today, but
Okay.
We're in that order of magnitude.
And how many have been accepted or rejected or processed?
A little more than 100,000, I believe, over the last couple of days we crossed that milestone.
And how many have made it to Canada?
So far, I don't, under that particular program, it's unclear to me, but because I just don't have the figure in front of me, there's been more than 25,000 since the beginning of the year. That includes people who may have come under a different stream. I want to add a little bit of detail from the trip that when we went to the region with Mr. Hallen last week. One of the things that we're seeing is a lot of people are taking an application out of the program for peace of mind and as an insurance policy. Belgium, in fact, has expected and prepared for 200,000. Only 30,000 have shown up. And the people are largely speaking wanting to stay as close to Ukraine as possible. And those who have left are showing a real reticence to even move away from transportation hubs. So I don't expect that everyone who becomes entitled to come to Canada will actually come to Canada. So we may continue to see a delta between the number who are here under this program and the number who've been approved.
Okay, fair enough. So part of the reason I ask these questions is because the backlog has grown substantially. It's increased by, I think we're up to 2.1 million, this same backlog we were speaking of before. And so I'm just curious if that's driven by the Ukrainian program, or what are the factors that are driving that explosion of 200,000 or 300,000 people just in the last few months?
So I want to be careful because those are your numbers, not mine. I assume that includes all of the people who've just applied to the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel. And we've now seen 200,000 people apply for the program in a matter of a month and a half. When you have that kind of a new program with those kinds of volumes, that adds to the total number of pending applications, again, which I hesitate to describe as a backlog because it's normal to have an inventory of cases. But a far more important measuring stick to me is how long it takes to get through these cases, not how many there are. If we have large numbers of people who want to come to Canada, I think that's a good thing. But the difference between the number of people who want to come and our ability to process them is a very important metric.
Yeah, and I think the point is that that wasn't going to increase the backlog, but it seems like it has. So that's a concern that we have. I just want to end quickly on hashtag SDS, which it has become SDS for Bangladesh. It has become a hashtag. Last week I heard that the department is actually working on this. Can you give us an update on the timing, how long it's likely to take for this to get processed?
Look, I don't have it in front of mind. I think we've actually seen a pretty significant increase in the approval rate from Bangladesh this year compared to, or 2021 compared to 2020. But I don't know if our officials have just the update that Mr. Redekop's looking for.
Thank you for the question. So as was shared previously, we have been doing work with the High Commissioner for Bangladesh, and we are doing finalizing the internal evaluation of the SDS. And we're expecting and hoping for it to be completed by fall 2022 in order to be able to proceed to have the program live, but we are in the process of finalizing that evaluation as we speak.